Feeling worthy is a very common pursuit that most people have. In fact, on average, about 70% of people don't feel that they're worthy, and they don't even know where to start to raise the feeling of self-value. I'm going to share with you now how you can raise your self-value, but I'm going to speak to you from a lens of frequency, of reality creation, of performance psychology. Having read over 300 books on performance psychology, mysticism, different areas of mysticism, which I'll make reference to, I have been going down to finding the patterns of what actually connects the unseen with the seen and how reality architecture actually works. Because once you elevate your self-worth, your reality completely configures. So let's get straight into it. So a person of high self-value automatically will feel worthy. And here's the thing. Yes, that means they may have a high self-concept, which in turn impacts their identity. And your identity, as you'll see from my work, is the set point for attraction. Here's the thing. It's not your fault if you feel that you don't have high self-value or you don't feel worthy. And the reason why 97% of the world is not attracting what they want in their life, they have been conditioned to be fueled by a scarcity frequency, a scarcity mindset. So what's happening is that people are being stimulated from the external. So they're looking outside of themselves. So this person that you're seeing here right now, they are pretty happy from what you can see. They have high self-value and high self-worth. They feel good within themselves. Their mindset, their mind, their thoughts are in coherence. Now, coherence is a very important element of being magnetic. Coherence is when your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, so we'll put number 3 here, your actions are all aligned. They are in sync. And before this alignment actually occurs, a person can have a desire to be more magnetic, more successful, to have the things that they desire, whatever that is for you, having the thoughts, but you don't feel that way. So a person doesn't essentially feel worthy. They don't feel that they're worthy of their desires. They don't have the high self-value. And a lot of the time you'll find that there are some people who actually have very high self-value, but it's inconsistent because, again, they're not coherent and they are being stimulated far too much by the external world. And the external world is designed to keep you feeling uncertain, unsure, confused, overwhelmed, separated from others, emotionally, spiritually, the list can go on. Physically for some, feeling isolated. And hence, when you are feeling these things, what happens? You can't be in your best state. It's impossible because your set point is what life and the universe is responding to. It's what God, the creation, is responding to, your frequency. And if you're in a state of uncertainty, unsure, confused, overwhelmed, pressure, stress, then you have an invisible ceiling. Now let's talk about that, because most people struggle from an invisible ceiling. There is only less than 3% of this planet, less than 3%, don't have an invisible ceiling, which is super rare that they think that way. And I can explain how they think that way because I understand it. 3% of the world is living in alignment to a frequency that does not have an invisible ceiling, and they think limitless, they think big, they think beyond. They understand that there is infinite potential in life. That doesn't mean they're off there sitting in a room completely detached from the world, because there is something known as spiritual psychosis as well. When they start to understand the laws of the universe, they can actually feel further fragmented and separated, because the ego is having difficulty now relating to the outside world. That isn't the state that you want to be in, because that isn't working for you. That can lead to all sorts of problems, which we won't go through today. We may touch on another episode. But today we are going to focus on your frequency is when you are overstimulated from external sources and you haven't built a coherent, aligned state within yourself, internal, instead of external, you are a slave to what frequency is happening in the world. Your life is impacted, dictated, distorted, invisible ceilings set over and over again, because you are validating your success, your happiness, your fulfillment, joy, levels of peace. The list can go on, based on what the external world is saying is success, happiness, fulfillment, joy, peace, abundance, prosperity, and so on. And what happens is, when you are looking outside of yourself for evidence from other people, from watching other people's examples, and you're chasing this identity that somebody else has, you become a slave to never reaching your own elevated identity. Because, and here's what I want to make clear, you can be in continuous pursuit of this elevated identity that you're setting far off in the future, but the universe will always bring to you through the path of least resistance in who you are now, who you are being most of the time. Therefore, the key is to build an internal state, an internal identity that isn't dictated by the outside world. And most people find this really hard to do. My clients who are 6 to 9 figure entrepreneurs, high achievers, people in the process of self-mastery, come to me because they've tried everything and they're just fed up. They're tired of the invisible ceiling that they're experiencing, and they know that there's something more for them. They desire a greater reality, and they understand that time is more important. It's the most valuable currency, and they don't have the time to waste trying to figure this out over years. So they come to me and I show them how it's done, and we go through the transformation. So if you are a 6 to 9 figure entrepreneur, someone who's a high achiever, process of self-mastery, you can go to the link in the comments. There's an application there, so you can apply to work one-to-one with me. So coming back to this internal state, the key is to build the level of certainty. And as I mentioned, you can go back to my video on the 3 C's of reality creation, because it is always happening. Now, most people have certainty in the absolute wrong areas of their life. This could be that they are certain that all women are gold diggers, or all men are cheaters, or life is expensive, or, they're going to end up alone, whatever it is. They are so certain and so convicted with that belief system, and that belief system's having a major impact on their state. They are so certain of it that they begin to continuously get stuck in a loop, attracting the same thing. Something I want to share with you, which is very, very important and very valuable in understanding the architecture of reality and reality creation itself. If you want to have a big shift, you're going to want to pay close attention. You're going to want to write this down. Everybody is doing this, but 97% of the world is doing this unconsciously. I'm showing you a loophole, a key to begin to do this consciously. The moment you start embodying this and concentrating on this consciously, your reality will shift. And I will show you how this is done. Most people are looking outside of themselves. Now, we talked about self-worth, right? They're looking outside of themselves to prove that they're worthy. Now, I'm going to show you it's not a cheat code, but it's a code to skip what everyone else is doing, and hence why their self-worth doesn't elevate. And in fact, their self-worth, it goes up and down. So for example, you get the job promotion, your self-worth goes up. You see Jane get the next position that you wanted, your self-worth goes down. You are attracted to Mary, and Mary starts dating Rob instead. Oops, that's meant to be low. And so your self-worth goes down because you asked her out, you went on a few dates, and she chose somebody else. See, most people are allowing what's happening outside of them to dictate their value and their self-worth. I'm showing you that that's the wrong way to do it. In fact, it's not your fault. You've been taught that because growing up in families, and I understand this is a sensitive topic, so I will be compassionate towards this because I understand. There are clients who I've helped through very difficult upbringings that they've had to let go of because it was completely weighing down their self-concept, completely weighing down their identity. So they would attract relationships, or it was just had a ceiling to how much wealth they could generate because they didn't feel worthy of more, and so on. There's multiple stories I can share with you, but what I want to share with you is this. Since childhood, people are taught to look up at the role models in their life. Now, they could be parents, grandparents, teachers, aunts, brothers, sisters, and so on. Now, if that family member grew up in an environment that didn't have the emotional stability and teach for that child to feel worthy, what happens is it's a loop that gets passed on child to child. I know I don't need to explain this to you. I know you understand this, but there is a subconscious element of you that no matter what, a parent, especially the one who's been the main caretaker, the one who's influenced you most, and they could have influenced you positively, but let's say in this case it's not a positive experience. That parent has direct access to your subconscious mind. So what's really important is you're going to feel that this is hard at first, but it doesn't have to be. In fact, I've seen examples of situations turn around in 28 days. So a person, and that may sound far-fetched, but that person had already done some work, and this was an element that needed to help them shift into the state that they needed to be in to release it through the work that we've done. So this situation that I'm sharing with you here and explaining to you here is that depending on the experience the part of you has had. See, when you're a child, from the ages of birth to 7, your mind is an absolute sponge. And your brain waves are in theta brain waves, and they are pretty much, your subconscious mind is wide open. And it is picking up everything from your environment, experiences, people, occurrences, and so on. That's why it's so important to be an incredible role model and teach the kids self-value from youth, from young. So if your parents, it's not their fault. They haven't been shown how to have high self-worth. And in fact, you could have been someone who had an example of a parent who was building confidence, but there was still self-worth lacking there, because that means their self-worth goes up and down. Like I said, 97% of people don't have this. So what we're going to do is we have to reprogram the mind. Now, most people think that is so hard to do because your subconscious mind is 97% of your mind. It makes up 97% of your mind. But here's the fun part. I love working with the subconscious mind. It's fun. Once you learn all of these incredible techniques that I share with you, in particular if you decide to become a client of mine. When you decide to become a client of mine, it's fun. It becomes fun. I love it. So coming back to here, your self-worth is impacted by these things. And we're stepping away from childhood because we understand that's where it's originated. But as an adult, your self-value and self-worth, you want to increase your self-worth, because if you increase your self-worth, you attract a higher level of experiences, people, desires, opportunities, all the good stuff. You attract more of it because that's your identity. You are the one who doesn't tolerate anything below that. That's your standard, right? That's your standard. To elevate your self-worth, there are two methods that I'm going to show you, and this is just an overview. So yes, there is deeper work, but you can start with this. To elevate your self-worth, you have to stop looking outside of you for validation. And you have to set a new standard of yourself, a new standard. This will be uncomfortable at first, but once you do it and you just stick to it, it's very worth it. It's very worth it, obviously, because you attract better things. So you elevate your self-worth by, number one, you increase the value you create in life. So how do you do this? This is practical approach. You take things more seriously. You set higher standards for your work. You choose to become someone who masters your work. Even if it doesn't matter what you're doing, it doesn't matter what your role is, you choose to do your best because you have integrity in the work that you do. And what that does is it elevates the capacity, the energy, the frequency, the output that you're creating, and it's perceived with higher value. But what's important is that yes, you will be remunerated. Can't say the word. Remunerated. Literally can't say it today. Can someone literally type it, how to say it in the comments, because I have gone blank. I've said this word multiple times. Remunerated, you know what I mean? You're paid. Can't believe I've literally got tongue-tied, but you're paid your value. You're paid well for your value because you have increased your output. But here's the thing, there are people who are very high producers of output, but they still have low self-worth. And if they have low self-worth, they will accept lower remuneration. That's it. They will accept a lower amount because there's other layers there. Now, those layers, we don't have to go through all of them today, but what I'm going to say is this. Your value is a decision. It is not what other people say you are. It is not what your parents said you are. It is not what an ex says about you. It is not what a teacher said about you. It is not anything. Even all the amazing compliments that you had. You have to be able to be detached. Not only should you be detached from the negative things that people say and may criticize and not see your value and so on, you have to also be detached from the compliments. It works both ways, because if you are attached to feedback that is positive, like compliments, merits, awards, pay rises, if you're attached to these things to signal that you are worthy and you are high value, and if you are attached to your sales and shouting it out to the world and saying how high your sales are, and that's actually what makes you feel valuable, and then you'll go through a slump, and business isn't a continuous upward slope. It has its moments. So say you're going for a downward patch, then you will say that your value, you won't feel valuable and confident at that time because your output's not hitting a higher echelon. The key is to be able to have your value completely independent from feedback, positive or negative. Now, people will give you feedback naturally, and you can take it on board. And if you are someone who is as passionate about self-mastery as high achievers and the top 1% are devoted to it, you'll take on the feedback. It won't actually impact your emotion. You'll just go, okay, great. So how can I find a solution for this? To be solution orientated. These type of tools elevate your value because you're not impacted by the external world. Your value is always going to remain at a high level if you perceive it of a high level. Now, no matter what you do, You can write affirmations. You can have people giving you the best compliments. You could be incredibly good looking. You could have an incredible figure or body, but you still, no matter what, don't feel complete. You don't feel worthy. You just don't feel it. No matter what you do, you could have all the money in the world and still not feel good because you have been placing your value based on what you have instead of who you are independently from it. And to be able to change your reality and have a higher frequency experience to really match to the things that set your heart alight, that fulfill you at such a deep level, where you attract all the things that you genuinely want that you don't have yet. And you really want those things. You're going to have to flip the script and look at things differently. You're going to have to create an identity that does not have an invisible ceiling, that is a state of frequency that now is the match to your desires. Your self-worth and self-value, I repeat this, is a very important one, decision. Every day you decide what your value is. If you are looking externally, you are allowing reality to decide what your value is. This is an internal decision, and it's going to feel uncomfortable at first because it doesn't feel real. You feel like you're lying to yourself. But you have to apply the 3 C's. You can go back and look at that video that I've done, the episode on the 3 C's of reality creation, because where you focus your concentration, and if you are continuously telling yourself that you are stuck in loops, your self-worth is low, your self-value is low, and so on, what happens is you build conviction. You genuinely believe you have no self-worth. And then you become certain of it. And when you become certain of this, it solidifies. Think of it this way. Self-worth in itself is an entity. Now, if this is you, there is an entity of self-worth that you have carried your whole life. And it could have been undulating, or it could be quite low, or it could be quite high. I want you to approach this as your new identity of self-worth. This is a great self-worth. Everything you've desired to be now, not in the future. It's now. We got to think now. You have to think now. Everything that you desire your identity to be of high self-worth, it's an entity. So every time, and think of it from a spiritual context, think of it from business. There are entities, there are ideas, it's an entity. It stands alone on its own. And the more work, energy, thought process, action, team collaboration, the more you put into it, the more it actualizes into reality. It materializes. The same works with the concepts of yourself. They're entities. So when you are feeding the entity that you don't desire, so this is the one you don't desire, it gets bigger and bigger, and it wants to survive because it wants to materialize into your reality. And it materializes into your reality because it can feel your conviction and your certainty that your self-worth and self-value is low. Instead, you have to flip the switch by changing your focus and concentration, as I talk about in the 3 C's, to an elevated identity of self-worth and self-love, that you are already complete and you are already whole and you already are a whole being. You already are this. And you are going to start looking for evidence of this from inside yourself first, and that is by the way you feel. So your conviction is going to grow because you're going to start making yourself feel the emotions that strengthen this entity. The more you do that, the stronger your certainty becomes. When your certainty of an elevated self-worth and self-value identity does, outruns, outmeasures, outlasts, like Survivor, outplays, outwits, outlasts the former identity, that's when it wins. So this is all about choice. Everything is a choice. We are so fortunate that life is the way it is because it's never too late. It is never too late to change your circumstances. And I am a byproduct of that. And my clients and people I've mentored, the students, the individuals, the teams, I've had teams of 200 team members and beyond, having worked with billion-dollar brands. We all are a byproduct of who we believe we are, but more so what we are certain we are now. It's never too late. You can absolutely change your self-worth, your self-concept, your identity to match the frequency of what you desire.